Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are starting a new study in the book of Jeremiah, the prophecies of Jeremiah. Now, this is going to be a rough book because Jeremiah is the unfortunate prophet who goes through the death of the nation, the little death of the nation. Um, so let me bring up I'm gonna kind of do some introduction here, and let's do this. I want to go through my chart. Um, my chart. Look at verse one. It says the words of Jeremiah the son of Hilkiah, Hilkiah, one of the priests living in Anath. Now I'll stop right. Okay, in the territory of Benjamin. Now this is how we identify Jeremiah throughout all the Old Testament. There are different names and things like that. What I want to do is I want to bring up the timeline here. Let's go to this. Let's do this chart here first. Now, as you can see, this chart um, chronicles the kings and of Israel and Judah. Now, remember, in order to understand that from a Old Testament perspective, you have to understand that there's a difference between the kingdoms of Israel and the kingdoms of Judah, or the king of Israel and the king of Judah. This starts with Solomon's son, um, Rehoboam. Okay, I'm sorry, Jeroboam. Jeroboam. Rehoboam was um, another guy. You have to kind of go back and read how this begins here. Okay, and again, I messed that up. It's Solomon's son was Rehoboam. Jeroboam was a guy who fled from Solomon when Solomon was in his sunken state. Okay, he had backslid, and he really turned his heart against God. Um, but Rehoboam, then after Solomon's death, Rehoboam, um, you could tell. I mean, just like we should be surprised at this, but when you are raised in privilege, and he was like David's sons were raised in privilege, and that turned out to be not good for some of them. But Rehoboam was raised in privilege as Solomon's son, but he did not inherit the wisdom of Solomon. Okay, so after he takes the throne, he brings the counselors together and says, "So how should we treat the people?" Now, the counselors that came up with his father, Solomon, advised him treat the people well, be a servant to them. During your father's lifetime, he overtaxed them. There was a heavy tax burden. Now, which is interesting in itself because we read the glories of the temple, but one of the things is that Solomon had heavily taxed the people. So now the advisors is telling Rehoboam, hey, ease off of the tax. So Rehoboam like, okay, fine. So then he brings his cronies in, the people he grew up in, his friends. He says, hey, how should we handle these people? They advised him, man, you should be even harder. You should tell them your finger would be thicker than their father's lawns. And he spoke harshly to the people. And as a result, it, Israel split. This is when you have these two kingdoms here. And so Jeroboam, who had fled from Solomon, they brought him back and he became king. So he was like the first king of Israel. Now, Solomon, God preserved Solomon's lineage, which is actually David's lineage. So he still ruled from Jerusalem. So the northern kingdoms, which is called Israel, and then Judah was the southern kingdom. Looking at a map, if you look at a map of Israel, you'll see Jerusalem is actually the southern part of Judah. So then the 10 tribes, that rebelled set up their own territory. This is where Samaria comes in. The city of Samaria. Later, you see Samaritans in the time of Jesus as they became sort of this mixed crowd. I'll get to that later. But so the city of Samaria, however, was the capital of the kingdom of Israel, while Jerusalem was still the capital of Judea or Judah. Okay. Now, so this is the chart of this, and you can kind of see um, you chart all the way down, and this is what I want you to kind of see. You get to, I'll get to the date in a moment, but you get to Hosea, who was the last king. In fact, let me show you where this happens here. Now, all of these people, you got the, so in the Old Testament, when you're reading, especially you get over into um, past the kingdom, excuse me, First and Second Samuel. So then when you get into Kings and Chronicles, this is the back and forth you see when you read um, uh, the stories of the kingdom of Israel. Now, this is the timeline here. Okay, if you go all the way back to this kind, in fact, this chart here is is a dating of the biblical times. Okay, but as you can see, all the way to approximately, well, you go all the way back to Genesis, which is about 4,000 years. Okay, as the story of the timeline of the Bible. Okay. Um, I don't know how accurate it is, but okay, I'm not an archaeologist, so I cannot confirm or deny. But this is a timeline. So when we get to these are Israel's dating, but when we get to Samuel, so about 1070 BC, this is the time of Saul, or 1043, and then we see David coming along about 10, so about he comes along. Where is his kingdom comes in at? Where you at, David? Right around 1010 BC, right? So then here is David's reign. See, I'm showing you a date here. So then we get to Solomon. Where's Solomon at? Here it is. Solomon's around 900, right? 967 BC. He takes charge of the kingdom. He takes the kingdom about that. He builds the temple around 966. Okay. Now, some of this dating can be. It's by the way, you can look at some of the prophecies. Like one interesting thing is when Solomon finished the temple, um, the, uh, the writer gives us a timeline. So this is how some of this is validated, the timeline. Okay. But here we come down to uh, Rehoboam, right? So not around 930 BC. Okay. 930 BC. Rehoboam, he starts to reign. Now, all right. So then you come all the way to, remember, I'm looking at this timeline here. And so Hoshea, if you want to call it, becomes the last king of Israel before the Assyrian captivity. And so this timeline here, Hosea, Hoshea, I should say, Hoshea, let's get to his timeline here. Okay. Hoshea, where is Hoshea? Okay. Hoshea. Here we go. Right here. This is the last king, Hoshea, 725 BC. Now, this is all going to be important. The reason why this is important here is because the writings of the prophets, okay, the writings of the prophets, they begin a prophetic utterance and a timeline towards God's judgment. And this is why I'm giving you this because, or reminding us of this. So when we look at these kings here, right, we see around 725, right, 722, Israel is led into captivity, right around this date here. So that's why from this point on, Hoshea, is now, he's the last king. Israel is in captivity. So from about 722 on, Israel, the northern kingdom, is desolate. So then we see the rest of the time, which is about 100 and what? About 100 and over 120 years. Let's see if I can do my math right here in my head. Okay, maybe I'll cheat a little bit here and do a quick math. All right, so if I subtract about 722 to the fall of Jerusalem, which is about what, 5? Come on, okay. The fall of Jerusalem, 586. Okay. It's about 136 years. About 136 years. Again, why am I doing all this? I'm just trying to give us a timeline here to kind of show you from the prophetic timeline. So about 130, right here, about 137 years later, Jerusalem falls. So you can see all these kingdoms here. They come in the Babylonian captivity, and then Israel is exiled from the land for 70 years. However, all of this starts way back here with around 7. Okay, here's Jonah. Here's I want to look at here's Amos at 766 BC. Here's Joel at 835 BC. 835 BC. Now let me see here. Let me go back again. 586. So I want to explain this in a moment right here. Joel. So let's do this here. Obadiah. Now again with the book 853, Obadiah is a questionable dating. Now, if you look at the I'm doing my math here. If you look at some people dispute the dating. So this is a much earlier dating for Obadiah as it's put in this chart, but it's put later, like after the or around Ezekiel's time. But I won't debate that since I'm not a scholar. But I wanted to say right around this time here of Joel, which is 835 BC. This is about 200 years, 239 years before the fall of Jerusalem. Okay, before the fall of Jerusalem. All right, now why am I bringing this all out here? Because first, let me do this. I can do it this way. Okay. All right. Now I'll illustrate one of the, as we're going through the scriptures, remember we're putting the prophecy in order to me as the date, not in its listing here, assembling the scriptures. So for that reason, remember the prophets, you got Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentation, Ezekiel, Daniel. These are called the major prophets or writings of the prophets. And then when you get to Hosea, and this is something right here, because when you get to Hosea, the listing of the minor prophets goes back. And this is what I want you to see. So so even though you read in your listing in your Bible, you read Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentation, Ezekiel, Daniel. But when you come to Hosea, what you don't kind of pick up on is they kind of go back to a different listing. So here it is. So in the listing here, all right, let's I hope you guys can see this. Okay, that's a little better. All right. So where's Hosea? Hosea, all right, so the dating of the minor prophets, okay, and as you can see from the different charts, there's always the kind of disputes among the scholars as to when. But they put Hosea and the list and section wise, the listing of the Bible. So from Genesis to Esther is in chronological order. Then the books of literature, right? Job, right? It's the earliest book, actually the earliest book in the Bible. And then Psalm, Proverbs, uh, Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon. Okay, so then you come to Isaiah, and the reason why it's listed this way is because Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentation, and Ezekiel and Daniel are considered the major prophets, so they group them together. But when you come to Hosea, you actually go back to a different time. So that Hosea is actually before, Hosea is actually before Isaiah. Look at this timeline. So when you look at Hosea, now the minor prophets, however, depending on, again, the scholarship. So notice here they have Joel actually in an earlier dating, which is AD 35. Then you have Amos 766, Jonah 760. Then you have Hosea 753. Now again, I don't know, this becomes a battle of the scholars as to why Hosea is listed first. All right. Not a problem for us, but the reason why I wanted to bring this out, and the reason why we studied this, if you go back and you look at on the channel, you will see we start with Joel. We start with in terms of order. We start in a sense with this order. Now the reason why is because I wanted to give the prophetic voice as God gave it. In other words, some 230 years before the fall of Jerusalem, God begins his prophetic voice to warn the nation of Israel to turn from their sins. Okay, that's why we did it that way. And I also wanted you to get the feel of the prophetic voice. So that now, for example, in Jeremiah, it's dire. It's a dire situation, okay? Which I will pick up in the next study because I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish this um, introduction in the next video. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.